Hello everybody, and welcome to the GKaiser Age. My name is Lucian GKaiser, and today we are starting the first of many episodes in my Macross Variable Fighter lore series. So let's get started. GKaiser Age launching! Before we begin talking about the first variable fighter, I want to go over the basics of what makes up a variable fighter and the development history that leads up to the first models. Since the designs of variable fighters change over the course of different Macross series, we shall focus on the most important aspects that are present in all the different models. All of them have a fighter aircraft mode that they are capable of transforming from into two other combat modes made for different combat styles. Most can also transform into an intermediate mode called Gerwalk mode, which stands for Ground Effective Reinforcement of Winged Armament with Locomotive Knee Joint. In this mode, the legs and arms of the humanoid mode are deployed, making it capable of flight, walking, and traveling via ground effect from the engine thrust vectored through the feet, and this is in most cases with most Valkyries. In this mode, the variable fighter is at its most maneuverable. While its top speed is limited by the aerodynamics of this mode, it can still easily rocket upwards, dash quickly to the side. With its main gun now being held in hand, the Gerwalk can also easily target fast-moving enemies while still accessing wing-mounted missiles. The final configuration, Roid Mode, where the variable fighter assumes a humanoid form that can easily match the size of most normal Zentradi. Their overall speed is limited in this mode, as the humanoid shape in atmosphere or on the ground is limited due to the aerodynamics of it, but with its arms deployed it can easily fire in greater arcs than in the fighter mode, along with engaging in hand-to-hand combat against the Zentradi if needed. This mode was designed to counter the Zentradi in their own environment by being more designed towards urban combat, easily able to maneuver around buildings and through narrow areas like hallways and corridors that existed on the SDF-1 Macross when it was originally still a Zentradi ship. This allows the Macross Valkyrie and variable fighters to actually be able to engage the Zentradi easily in these types of environments. The main weapon of most variable fighters is a large caliber gun pod, usually a Gatling type of weapon which can easily core most enemy craft that it is fired at. This weapon is evolved over time and enhanced and changed with different variable weapon types and of course different types of ammo as well, and we'll get more into that in later models specifically. The origin of the Valkyrie series of variable fighters begins with the discovery of the Zentradi race of giant humanoids genetically engineered for military combat and conquest. Seeing how the SDF-1 Macross in its original alien configuration had been sized to accommodate the massive Zentradi soldiers, and Spacey decided that they needed a weapon system that could fight the Zentradi in their own environment. Working with a conglomerate of the companies of Northrop Grumman, Stonewell, Shinsei, using over technology, and Spacey had them begin development of the VF-1 variable fighter craft. First came the development of an airframe to test the aerodynamic properties of a fighter jet that would need to convert into a more humanoid form. After this testing was complete and aerodynamics proven feasible, we come to the development of the first VF fighter or variable fighter that could only operate within an atmosphere. This was the VF-0 line of variable fighters, designated the Phoenix, and now let's go ahead and take a closer look at the VF-0 Phoenix series. In order to proceed with the development of the VF-1 Valkyrie, the UN Spacey variable fighter development teams used the VF-0 series as test beds to help with the production of various new over-technology systems. In 2004, the first completed fighter was delivered, and though the craft were not really considered combat ready, in 2008 they would get deployed against an enemy they did not anticipate. Over-technology information had been stolen along with developmental information for the VF series by anti-UN forces, and military intelligence confirmed they had already deployed an experimental VF squadron in combat against UN forces. VF-0 Phoenixes were deployed around the island of Mayan in the South Pacific Ocean in the year of 2008 and participated in an operation to combat anti-UN forces for the purpose of recovering an alien artifact before the enemy could get their hands on it. During their time in the combat zone, the pilots Roy Fokker, Shin Kudo, and Edgar Lashala showed the incredible combat ability of the variable fighters against the enemy forces. The VF series of variants is limited versus later variable fighter series, so in just this video, I'll be going over all three of the different versions, as their differences are only slight between all of them. The VF-0A was a successfully deployed unit, but was only produced in small numbers as production resources were devoted more towards the advanced VF-1 Valkyrie that would follow. The UN Spacey manufactured 24 VF-0A general issue single-seater fighters with various configurations of them as combat testbeds. These fighters proved effective enough during combat, providing great combat information and feedback to help improve the development of the VF-1 series. Naval pilot Shin Kudo piloted a VF-0A fighter when conducting operations around the island of Mayan in 2008, going up against the anti-UN forces variable fighters. The VF-0D Phoenix is a two-seat variant of the standard VF-0A Phoenix variable fighter and features larger main wings for improved range. For maneuverability, the VF-0D has two large canards mounted ahead of the main wings and two ventral stabilizers near the intakes. The increased surfaces of this main fixed wing allows the VF-0D to carry 20% greater maximum payload than the VF-0A and its other variants, and it is capable of mounting most former United States or NATO standard aviation ammunition and weaponry. The downside of this large fixed wing, though, is it's a larger radar cross section and also increases the overall size of the fighter, making it a larger target to hit and also limiting maneuverability in both Jerwalk and, of course, Roid Mode. Shin Kudo and Edgar Lashala piloted a VF-0D, with Edgar being the RIO, during the events surrounding the island of Mayan in the year 2008. The VF-0S was a variant of the VF-0 built to be utilized by the more experienced commanders of flight groups, and with its special tuning done on this model, giving it more speed and more maneuverability, and to allow it to bring out the full potential of the VF-0 series. The biggest difference in the S variant is a new head unit with two Mauler laser cannons rather than a single laser cannon on the previous variants. In addition, the VF-0S removed the integrated control system's limiters, which allow skilled pilots to maximize their control of the VF-0S in all modes. Renowned ace pilot Roy Fokker piloted a VF-0S during the events surrounding the island of Mayan, and of all the pilots that handled a VF-0S, he truly pushed the plane to the breaking point. Fokker piloted his VF-0S into combat using the reactive armor system as well against a devastating attack by the anti-UN variable fighter squadron, and also piloted a fast-packed equipped version. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the specifications and performance of the VF-0 series of variable fighters. In fighter mode, the VF-0 has a length of 18.69 meters, and in Roid mode, a height of 14 meters. I could not find an official height record for the Gerwalk mode, but we can estimate it is around 10 meters high. The fighter mode is based strongly off of the F-14 Tomcat fighter plane. The swing wings allow for a more compact figure during Roid mode versus fixed wings. The head unit has a high-definition TV camera, night vision camera, infrared laser designator, laser range finder, IFF data link system, and ultrasonic motion sensor. The VF-0A and VF-0D features a compound eye system where two separate sensor packs are arranged on top of each other, while the VF-0S has them arrayed within a single compound visor setup. It uses two-dimensional thrust vectoring engine nozzles to assist with maneuvers in all modes, and rectangular under-fuselage air intake setup with semi-retractable slit-style shutters that cover them during Roid mode, and would in space if the fighter was equipped with aerospace engines. A combination of 3 digital fly-by-wire flight control systems, FCS, is used to keep the craft balanced in each of its modes. This system uses an advanced learning computer to calculate and adjust control surfaces and thrust vectoring during combat to help the aircraft maintain balance. But with this system, it has limiters engaged in most models that reduce the pilot's ability to control the plane, and this is in turn to help prevent the aircraft from being forced into a possibly fatal stall maneuver by inexperienced pilots. Because in Roid mode and Gerwalk mode, the aircraft is highly unstable and not very aerodynamic, so the FCS system is necessary to help maintain balance as best as possible while the pilot is focusing on flying and shooting at the enemy. The lack of thermonuclear reaction engines being ready for production meant the VF-0 series was developed with larger conventional jet engines that were overtuned to provide the thrust and power for the variable fighters systems. The engines used are 2 EGF-127 custom overtuned conventional turbofan jet engines, which work well enough but have a lot of constraints due to the fact that the VFs were meant to have the more powerful thermonuclear engines installed in them. They require a lot more maintenance and fine-tuning to keep their output efficiency, not to mention the airframe of the fighter had to be made longer due to the greater size of the engines. The VF-0A model could reach a maximum speed of Mach 2.62, while the VF-0S managed a slightly faster speed of Mach 2.74, making them capable of engaging and withdrawing from combat quickly. Dorsal conformal fuel tanks were added to help provide enough fuel due to the massive fuel consumption required for the overtuned output of these massive engines. But even with these added onto the aircraft, it still has serious limitations in operational range. The VF-0 series had to be operated from either carriers or refueled during prolonged combat air patrols. It has a built-in mid-air refueling system, and it has been seen being refueled by carrier-based tanker aircraft. Now, let's take a look at the weapons the VF-0s were armed with, starting with the Mauler laser cannons. These were mounted singly on the VF-0A and on the D model, as well as with the 2 that were mounted on the S model. These were used as anti-personnel, anti-missile defense systems, but can damage light vehicles given enough time on target. The main weapon of the fighter, though, is a Howard GPU-9 35mm Gatling gun pod, featuring adjustable rate of fire for 60 rounds, 1,250 rounds, or 2,500 rounds per minute, driven by a 90 horsepower electronic motor, muzzle velocity of 1,100 meters a second, loaded with up to 550 rounds in total. It can utilize armor-piercing heavy rounds, but it can also carry various other types of ammunition. This weapon, while effective for conventional warfare, would be replaced by more powerful, advanced, heavier models that would be developed later, using over-technology to help improve their rate of fire and consistency. This is something we'll go into more detail about in a separate video focusing on the VF weaponry in detail, if you guys comment in my video about it and let me know that you really want to hear more in detail. So moving on, the VF-0s also have 4 Underwing Hardpoints with a variety of missile loadouts to engage enemies at longer range. 4 of those pylons can be used for 12 total standard Raytheon Bofors AIM-200A AMRAAM guided missiles. It can also carry 4 GH-28A 8-tube general-purpose micro-missile launchers capable of firing in 3 volleys, or it can carry 2 HAIM-95A medium-range maneuverability missile launcher pods, or a combination of the above loadouts. The VF-0S Phoenix PWS-0X reactive armor variant was a completed equipment package meant to modify the Roid mode of the VF-0S for heavy combat situations where increased survivability is necessary. Heavy armor, additional thrusters, and numerous missiles are equipped to the VF-0S Batroid configuration, along with 2 large boosters mounted on the back of the torso. A 2-part missile launcher system is installed on the front torso, along with 2 large missile launchers mounted on each shoulder. The reactive armor parts provide protection by explosively reacting to hostile fire, effectively increasing the path length of the armor and disrupting the projectile. However, the armor was significantly less effective when impacts from enemy fire landed in the same location, and thus the armor was frequently abandoned after deflecting an initial assault. The missiles used in the reactive armor system are Raytheon Ericalone GH-30B IR guided micro missiles, with 50 in total that are typically fired in simultaneous volleys from each of the 4 launchers. Roy Fokker utilized this system on his VF-0S Phoenix to repel an anti-UN strike upon the carrier Asuka in 2008, and while he was able to fend off the attackers, the armor's restriction of movement proved to be a point of contention. During the final confrontation with the enemy forces, both Shin and Roy deployed in VF-0s armed with full fast packs and jury-rigged QF-2200A Ghost unmanned fighters equipped with 5 micro-missile launchers on the Ghost. The Ghost is mounted on the back of the fighter to be used as a booster and enhancing the range of the VF-0 moderately, but they also made the VF-0 even harder to handle. The 2 external atmospheric combat super packs, conformal fuel tank combinations, also known as fast packs, mounted on each of the legs, were armed with 24 micro missiles each and 1 standard gun pod spare magazine, giving the VF-0 more firepower and endurance in combat. For defense, the VF-0s are equipped with 1 AN/ALE-55 flare and chaff dispenser system and an integrated AN/ALQ-220A IDECM electronic countermeasure system, an ASS PS110 active stealth system is also included on the VF-0s to help enhance the stealth profile of these variable fighters. Along with a frame made of space metal material, a titanium carbon composite outer shell of armor was introduced to give it durability on the level of an attack helicopter. But the most important defensive system of all was the AWAG-RA105 SWAG SWAG energy conversion armor. It uses surplus power generated from the engines to enhance the strength of the armor itself, but in fighter mode, since most of the engine output is dedicated to flight, the system cannot be activated. While in Gerwalk mode, the energy conversion armor increases the armor strength to about 4 to 5 times greater than that of the fighter mode, and it achieves a rating of 10 times greater when in Roid mode. This explains why in later series of VF fighters, they are seen crashing through buildings in Gerwalk or Roid mode and giving them a better chance at surviving in close combat with Zentrani soldiers. In the end, while the limitations of the engine output hampered some of the performance of the VF-0s, they still showed how powerful and effective the variable fighter could be in combat. With all the combat data gathered during the battle and the threat of possible future encounters with enemy variable fighters, the VF-1 project completion was accelerated. In the year 2009, the first VF-1 models would engage in combat with an enemy from space, but they would do so successfully thanks to the improvements made from the information gathered from the VF-0s. So, that is it for the VF-0 series of Valkyrie fighters. That is it for the VF series of variable fighters. It is one of my favorite Macross fighters designs in the Macross universe. I really love this plane. It is awesome looking and definitely has a nice flair of just great design choices on it. It has a lot of things that are remnant of current real-life fighter planes in regards to the F-35, the F-22, and several other fighter planes in existence, including the F-14 as well. Enjoyed this first of many lore videos from Macross variable fighters, and next time we will be taking a closer look at the anti-UN forces fighters that gave Shin and Roid more trouble than they imagined. If you love Macross Valkyries, let me know below in the comments which are your favorites and the ones that you can't wait for me to do a video on. Also, let me know with some likes and favorites, and make sure you share this video with your friends if they are Macross fans, or if you want to introduce them into the world of Macross and Macross variable fighters. Look forward to the next episode, along with the next episode of my Super Dimensional Fortress Macross lore series, and subscribe along with hitting that bell icon to be notified when the next episode comes out. You can also see links below for my Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook page where you can see me streaming games like Macross 30 and more information about everything in the GKaiser Age. Once again, this is Lucian GKaiser from the GKaiser Age, signing out until the next Macross Variable Fighter Lore Battle.